Welcome back, detectives. Today, we are investigating a titan of the 20th century, a relentless visionary who pioneered synchronized sound and invented the multiplane camera. Forget the final product. This is the story of a genius who was fired for a lack of imagination in his 20s, faced bankruptcy 3 times, and was betrayed by his own studio. Your challenge is to name the legend whose entire career was built on recovering from disaster. Pay attention to the failures, not the fame. The puzzle of the unnamed biography begins now. Part 1. The Midwestern Wanderer, Early Life and Failure. Our story begins in 1901, in the heart of the American Midwest, in the city of Chicago, Illinois. The boy was the fourth of 5 children born to an often absent, hardworking father and a mother known for her quiet endurance. His early life was characterized by constant geographical upheaval, a theme that mirrored the restlessness of his father, a farmer and later a newspaper distributor. He spent his early childhood on a farm near Marceline, Missouri, a period he would later romanticize as the idyllic setting that shaped his view of Americana. Marceline, however, did not last. The family soon moved to Kansas City, Missouri, where, as a young boy, he started his working life before dawn, helping his father deliver newspapers. This grueling, demanding work instilled in him a powerful work ethic, but left him little time for the formal schooling he struggled with anyway. His true passion was drawing. He often sketched pictures of the farm animals he remembered or copied illustrations from the newspapers he delivered. He returned to Chicago briefly as a teenager, lying about his age to drive an ambulance for the Red Cross in France just after World War I. An adventure that provided his first taste of the world outside the Midwest and his first exposure to European art and culture. Upon returning to Kansas City, he knew he was destined for a creative field. He started his first animation company, Laugh-O-Gram Films, in the early 1920s. This was his first attempt to professionalize the cartooning skills he had honed in the Army. The company was innovative, producing a series of short, local fairy tale cartoons, but it was disastrously managed. The local distributor was unreliable, checks bounced, and the overhead was too high. At the age of 22, he watched his first venture crumble. The failure was so complete that the young dreamer was forced to live off cold beans in his office, eventually declaring bankruptcy and liquidating every asset he owned. This failure, however, was his most profound lesson. He learned the harsh reality of cash flow, distribution, and corporate control, lessons he would never forget. After losing everything, he made a pivotal decision. He left the Midwest for good and took a one-way train ticket to Hollywood, California. His assets amounted to $40, a cardboard suitcase, and a half-finished reel of film. He arrived not seeking work in animation, but as a hopeful live-action director. A strange detour for a man who would define the animation medium. Clue number 1. Born in Chicago, raised in Missouri, and went bankrupt in Kansas City with his first animation studio, Laugh-O-Gram. Moved to Hollywood with only $40. Part 2. The Silent Era. Struggles upon arriving in Hollywood, he quickly abandoned the idea of becoming a director, realizing his true talent lay in what he had just failed at: animation. He quickly established a new studio in 1923 with his older brother, who handled the business side of the operation, a partnership that would remain the bedrock of his career. He created a moderately successful character called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, a playful, long-eared figure for Universal Pictures. This character became his first national success, bringing his studio a modicum of fame and financial stability in the competitive world of silent cartoons. By 1928, after 5 years of grinding work, he traveled to New York to negotiate a new contract with Universal's distributor, Charles Mintz. He believed his success with Oswald had earned him a significant raise. However, in a crushing and shocking turn of events, he learned a brutal truth about the power structure of the emerging cartoon industry. He did not own the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. The distributor Mintz had shrewdly ensured that the character and all creative control belonged to Universal. Furthermore, Mintz had secretly hired away most of the subject's top animators, offering them higher salaries, leaving the studio effectively gutted. He was offered a significantly lower contract to continue working on his own creation, but he refused, walking away from his first successful character and the studio he had built. The journey back to California from New York was a period of intense reflection, anger, and desperation. He was 26 years old, had once again lost a creative property, and faced the prospect of starting over entirely. It was on that long train ride that the genesis of his life's most iconic creation emerged. He needed a new character, one that he, and only he, would own outright. His initial sketches were of a short, round mouse. The first name he had for the character was Mortimer, but his wife suggested a simpler, more memorable name. He agreed. This mouse, simple and scrappy, made his debut in a silent short film in 1928, but failed to find a distributor. The creative landscape was shifting dramatically, and the public was demanding more than silent antics. Recognizing the necessity of change, he took a monumental risk. He mortgaged his car and property to produce a fully synchronized sound cartoon featuring his new mouse. This single bold move, released in 1928, revolutionized the industry overnight, demonstrating the untapped potential of sound in animation. Clue number 2. Lost the rights to his first hit character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, to Universal in 1928. Created his most famous character, a mouse, on a train ride after this loss, originally naming him Mortimer. Part 3. The Golden Age of Innovation. The successful introduction of the Sound Mouse launched his studio into its golden age. But he was not content to simply churn out shorts. He was a restless innovator, constantly pushing the technical and artistic boundaries of the medium. In the early 1930s, he pioneered the use of color in animation with his Silly Symphonies series, which allowed him to experiment with musical scoring and complex visual effects. These shorts were critical to his artistic development, but they were not cheap. He was a perfectionist who believed that animation was not just a novelty, but a true art form. His greatest gamble, however, began in 1934. He announced that his next project would be the first feature-length, hand-drawn animated film ever produced in America. Hollywood scoffed, calling it Disney's folly. Industry experts predicted disaster, claiming no audience would sit through an 80-minute cartoon. Banks refused to lend him the money, forcing him to mortgage nearly every possession he owned to finance the production. The cost soared to nearly $1.5 million, an astronomical sum for the time, leading to near-total financial collapse several times during the 4 years of production. The story was based on a classic German fairy tale, featuring a jealous queen, a band of small helpers, and a heroine who escapes into the forest. He micromanaged every aspect of the production, pushing his animators and technicians to invent new techniques to achieve unprecedented realism, including the development of the multiplane camera to add depth to the animation. When the film premiered in late 1937, it was not a folly, it was a phenomenon. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, and the public flocked to theaters. It became the highest-grossing film of all time until Gone with the Wind was released 3 years later. The success finally provided the financial security he had desperately craved for over 15 years. The profits were immediately reinvested into building a state-of-the-art studio complex in Burbank, California, which became the industrial cradle of his animation empire. Clue number 3. Revolutionized animation by introducing synchronized sound, 1928, and feature-length color film, 1937. The first feature was based on a classic German fairy tale and cost $1.5 million. He pioneered the multiplane camera. Part 4. Wartime and the shift to live action. The late 1930s saw the studio enjoy a run of artistic brilliance, producing several more animation classics. However, the fortunes of the studio were dramatically impacted by the onset of World War II. Foreign markets, which accounted for a huge percentage of film revenue, were suddenly closed off. The studio was on the brink of financial disaster once again. In a move that few other studios dared, his facilities were largely requisitioned by the U.S. government and the military for the war effort. His animators, instead of drawing whimsical tales, spent the war producing training and propaganda films for the military. This work was essential but far from profitable, further straining the company's finances. After the war, he faced a new reality. The era of pure hand-drawn animation as his primary output was fading. He realized the future of his company lay in diversification, especially into the burgeoning market of live-action filmmaking. He began producing a successful series of live-action nature documentaries, which were shot in exotic locales and became a reliable source of revenue. More importantly, he recognized the power of the new medium, television. Against the advice of his financial planners and many in Hollywood who saw television as a threat to the film industry, he plunged into the new market. He used a new, groundbreaking Sunday evening television program to promote his upcoming films, re-air old cartoon shorts, and, most importantly, market a huge, ambitious project he was developing for Southern California. The early, immense success of this TV show provided the necessary capital and public awareness for his final, greatest project. The man who once slept on cold beans in his failed studio was now a savvy media pioneer, leveraging film, television, and consumerism to promote a vision far grander than any animated short. He understood that controlling the distribution of his own content was key, a lesson learned bitterly from the Oswald betrayal. Clue number 4. During World War II, his studio was largely taken over by the US government to produce training and propaganda films. He later pioneered live-action nature documentaries and was one of the first major Hollywood figures to embrace and utilize television for promotion. Part 5. The Ultimate Dream and Final Act. His final definitive act was the realization of a decades-long personal dream, creating a physical, immersive place where his stories and characters could literally come to life. He imagined a place where parents and children could have fun together, a clean, safe, and controlled environment, a stark contrast to the often seedy amusement parks of the era. This idea led to the creation of the world's first modern theme park. He personally oversaw every aspect of its design, often drawing sketches for attractions on his own. Because he needed total control and the resources of several corporations, he faced immense financial hurdles. He needed to find a space large enough, with room for growth, and with access to a major metropolitan area. The location he ultimately chose was a massive 160-acre citrus grove in Anaheim, California, far south of Hollywood. To fund this seemingly insane project, he made another innovative move. He partnered with the ABC television network. The network invested heavily in the park in exchange for the rights to his television programming. The park opened in 1955. Its opening day was famously chaotic and disaster-ridden, dubbed Black Sunday by the press. But the public response in the following weeks was overwhelming. It was an instant cultural landmark, a testament to his unique vision for integrating storytelling, architecture, and technology. It instantly became the single biggest revenue generator for his company. In his final years, he focused on expanding his vision. He became obsessed with utopian city planning, designing a blueprint for an entire model city based on innovation and corporate control, which he called the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, EPCOT. This city was to be built in Florida, where he secretly acquired over 25,000 acres of swamp and citrus groves through shell corporations to prevent land speculators from driving up the price. He recognized that to build a true model city, he needed absolute, total jurisdictional control over the land, a level of power only granted by state legislation. He died in late 1966 due to lung cancer, just before the Florida project, the true Epcot model city, could be fully realized. His brother carried out the Florida development, though the city vision was eventually diluted into a second theme park. He left behind a complex legacy, a business titan, a technological pioneer, a genius animator, and a ruthless perfectionist haunted by early failures. Clue number 5. Opened the world's first modern theme park in Anaheim, California in 1955. His final vision was a model community called EPCOT, planned for Florida. His most iconic character was a mouse. Part 6. The Grand Reveal. The man who delivered newspapers in Kansas City, who lost his first creation to corporate betrayal, who pioneered sound and color and animation, and who built the world's most recognizable entertainment kingdom, achieved something that transcended film. He created a place where dreams were made real, a legacy of relentless innovation and marketing genius driven by a single promise of magic. He was the relentless entrepreneur, the cinematic titan, the father of the world's most famous mouse, and the man who put an entire state under the jurisdiction of his corporation. The Unnamed Biography belongs to none other than Walt Disney. Did you guess correctly? How early did you figure out the identity of this American legend? Drop your first guess in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the Unnamed Biography for more historical puzzles. Until next time, keep those history books open.